Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Racing Hotspot. My name's Devin Ponslesny. I'm joined by my co-host today, Mr. Jordan Jenkins. Jordan, how are you?
Not too bad. How about yourself, Devin?
Doing pretty good. It was an eventful weekend for all of us, but
Yes.
overall wasn't just another weekend. And super excited to be here talking with you once again. This week we're going to talk about some short track racing stuff as well as Formula One and NASCAR over in Kansas. Should be a good show. So, Jordan, real quick, kind of take it away here for the short track Saturday segment.
Yeah, well, you didn't want to introduce or anything. You kind of just wanted to get into it because it's the first time we're doing it.
Sorry, we'll introduce the segment here. So basically, the idea is that we're going to kind of try and do this weekly, where more or less, if one of us goes to a short track, or even if we see something online from a short track, we talk about it, and just kind of be like Jordan went and covered the MRS race this weekend. He did the PA announcing down at New London Waterford Speed Bowl. So that would be Jordan's, talking about that this week and things like that. We can also talk about some stuff we saw at Monadnock Speedway with some Bandolero cars doing some rollies. Everybody's okay, real quick. But we can talk about that. And then, of course, just general short track stuff if we see anything online or whatever. So, obviously, we've kind of talked about this before when the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour was running. We talked about we talked about some short track news with Jordan. We've talked about some short track news in general. So we've kind of already did this, but we figured that we'd throw an actual official title on it now. So that's kind of the point or the idea behind it. And with that being said, is that a good enough intro for you, Jordan?
Yeah, that's good enough.
With that being said, Jordan, take it away with your part of Short Track Saturday.
Yeah, so as Devin said, as we've talked about on past episodes, is I am the one of the series announcers for the Modified Racing Series. And our season opener was this past Saturday on the 4th at New London Waterford Speed Bowl, a short track that Devin has told me is a bucket list for him. And
it's just so
we
historic.
had, yeah, it was my first time at the track personally, and it's a 3/8 mile, so it's short track, but it's bigger size short track for grassroots racing than what we usually see. Mm-hmm. And we had 19 cars entered. All 19 made it into the feature, and we had 3 heat races of 6 to 7 cars in each, and then our feature was the headliner for the blast off Saturday at the track with our 75 lap feature that saw a name that I know Devin knows, but a lot of people some people that are listening might know. And the 25 of Matt Sorensen ended up with the win. And he told me actually that morning, like a couple hours before MRS first practice even happened, he told me, for your first race, I hope I'm able to put on a show, whether I wreck or I win. He did both. He had a technical issue in heat race number 1 where he spun from the lead and coming out of turn 4 and collected 2 other cars, and in the 76 of Brett Meservey and the 21 of Jacob Perry, who is the 2022 MRS champion. Mm-hmm. And there was kind of a little disagreement of what happened. I mean, from what I know, Perry's team wasn't really involved. It was more the 76 team of Meservey and the 25 team of Swanson that had their disagreements, like any other racers would when something like that happens.
Right.
Meservey thought Swanson just stopped his car in the middle of the turn when Swanson was like, why would I do that? Why would I want to go in and wreck my own equipment and stuff? But as a result, Swanson did have to start at the rear because obviously he did not end up finishing the heat race. Meservey and Perry both did. Actually, Perry did not, but Meservey did. And Swanson put on a show in the feature. He started from the rear, which was 19th, and made it all the way to the front and won the feature. But we were clean the first 50 laps, but then the good old saying of cautions breed cautions happened within the last 25, where we had 4 to 5 spins and wrecks in the last 25. And after the last 25, the caution laps didn't count, so we had to go 25 green, and it took a little bit after that.
That's something I like about what short tracks do. It's kind of like, the first half of the race can whatever, like, but then the last, half or last fourth of the race, you have to run the green flag laps. And again, it's cool because it's really for the fans. So it's benefiting them and putting on a good race.
And I do want to give a shout out to that 25 team, because in that front stretch interview I had with him with Swanson at the end of the race, he said that Saturday was their first race ever since they lost their team mascot in Mia, and he had one of her toys in his car. So not a bad way to have your first race after you suffer a loss like that with your team. You come out and win the season opener of the MRS. But
yeah, that's huge.
Swanson is also a name where people are like, oh, where does that name sound familiar? He used to be he still might be, so don't quote me on this, he was part-time in the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour, driving the ever historic old blue 3 car in the Whelen Modified Tour. But his MRS car is a 25, and he ended up winning. His sponsor, Serval Autos, and they were actually one of the sponsors for our race too, because they actually, along with the racing guys, chipped in extra bonus money to the top 3 finishers, as well as every 5th position. So the 5th place, 10th place, and 15th place winner got bonus money from the racing guys in Serval's Auto. So always good for Swanson to win when your sponsor helps chip in money for the race.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. It's a win-win for everything. Win-win for the series, win-win for the sponsors, win-win for the driver.
Well,
go ahead.
Do you want me to do the top 3, or do you want me to do top 5 or top 10, whatever, for the MRS results?
Doesn't matter. Do what you want to do.
All right, I'll do the top 5. So Matt Swanson obviously ended up with the feature win. Finishing second was the 06 of Les Hinckley. He had a good battle with Swanson for the whole last half of the race. Todd Owen in the 81 finished third, who started in the middle of the pack. The 13 of Max Azakum finished fourth. And then in the number 24, Todd Patnode, who'd had issues in a big about 8 to 10 car pileup on the backstretch, ended up battling back and finishing fifth. We did have 5 cars not finish the race. So 14 of 19 finished. But a great race. I would say a great race overall. It's modified racing, so it's not much more you can really be like. Modified racing is modified racing. Well, it's the Whelen Modified Tour or the Modified Racing Series. They always put on great shows. And there was a lot of lead changes, a lot of great battles throughout the field as well.
And again, that's always good. It's great to hear that, and great to your short track stuff is what you're trying to put on a really good show, because those are the races that are easily accessible to your everyday fan, right? Like, yes, NASCAR comes to town. You can go to Loudon, you can go to Kansas, you can go wherever, and you can go to the race. But NASCAR is not in town every weekend. Whereas New London Waterford Speed Bowl or Monadnock Speedway or Claremont or whoever is running every weekend. So that's always important. You want to make sure that these these races are putting on good races and good shows.
And I had a lot of people throughout the day, because it was a long day for everyone at the track. So I got to the track about 9 a.m. Our first practice was a 30-minute practice session was at 12:15. We had another one at 2. Our feature was about like 5 o'clock, and then I didn't end up leaving the track till about 7:30. So I was pretty much at a track from 9 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. I think that's the definition of a long day.
Yeah, that is. But it's a fun day too.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah, no, that's good. I'm glad you had a good time though. I'm glad everything was going well, and
I'm kind of shocked I went to a track that Devin wanted to go to before he ended up going. I think that's a first.
it is a first. It's okay though. Part of it is that, when we were actively covering racing, New London Waterford Speed Bowl was one of those quote unquote distance tracks for us. It was like 3 hours away. And now, 3 hours is nothing. But back when I was like in my teens, 3 hours was huge.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And
yeah.
the MRS's next race will be June 22nd, so a long break now. And that'll be at Riverside Raceway in Groverton, New Hampshire. So a long break for the MRS guys. Well, I say that, but they'll probably race another modified series around the region.
Probably.
But they're off in the MRS for a month and a half.
All right. And that's always good because those race teams that might have gotten wrecked this weekend or whatever, they have time to now go back and fix it, and make sure, and some of these teams are budget teams, so they need that time to be able to, go work to the next paycheck and then boom, be able to work and be able to put something onto the car or do something like that. So, yeah, happy to hear though that you had a good weekend, and happy to hear the series is off to a good start. And we used to work with the MRS a lot, and we still do here and there, but it's just been happy to hear, that they're doing well over there.
Yeah, there's a lot of people at the Waterford Speed Bowl that were looking forward to our main event feature.
I bet.
We were the last show of the day. We were right after the Evolve Pro trucks, and they had a one-lap shootout. Instead of a green-white checker, they had a green checkered finish. But, yeah, there's a lot of excitement at the track with race fans with the MRS being there, because it's been a couple of years since the MRS hadn't made an appearance there. But this year we make 2. We had the first one on Saturday, and then our next one is October 11th, which is our finale of the season. We'll be back over there.
Nice. Yeah, no, it's definitely exciting. And of course, people just love the modifieds in general. So to have them have them come in, and not to mention they're a touring, it's a touring series. So you're seeing these bigger drivers, such as like the modified guys who run MRS on the side. You get to see that. So
yeah, just since you're on that topic now, July 6th we have a NASCAR with a modified tour driver and Woody Pitcat that's going to be in our field July 6th at Star.
That's awesome.
And if any of you guys ever go to an MRS race this summer or next year or whatever it may be, our trailer in the pits has all our past champions, because this is the 20th year of the MRS.
Mm-hmm.
You see a lot of big names. Like one of them the MRS champion in 2014 is 3-time NASCAR with a modified tour champion, and Justin Bonsignor.
Just casual name throwing out here.
Yeah, exactly. But it just goes to show you the kind of names that have raced in the MRS currently or have in the past.
Right, exactly. And they've come through the series, and again, like these guys are the ones who are coming from the area, and they're what's it called? I don't know what the saying is, but basically learning and getting going there. Like they're able to now, like, oh wow, because the MRS series runs the same specs as the tour, right?
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, so think about it this way: hey, I got this race car. I'm gonna go run in the NASCAR Wheel Modified race here at Thompson. You're making an investment on your race car, and here you are. You don't with any investment, you don't want to just run it once and then, all right, well, we'll run in June. Like, you want to learn, you want to use it, and also you want to get the most for your money as far as like your investment. So as you're sitting here looking for places to go, MRS is saying, hey, we run the same exact specs as the tour. So now you have a place to go, not only learn and get better with your car, but also a place that just be able to go use your car. So yeah, it's definitely great. Happy to, like I said, I'm super. We covered them a little bit. We're happy to work with them and love working with them here and there, and um, it's definitely a great series. Any other final thoughts from you regarding your experience, your weekend with at New Orleans, or anything otherwise? Because I got one more thing for
Um,
Short Track Saturday. So go
I
ahead.
think I covered everything.
So up in Monadnock, the NASCAR Legends Car Series or NASCAR Legends Tour was racing at Monadnock Speedway, and one of the Bandolero cars contact spun out, wound up rolling down the front straightaway and finishing on his or ending on his roof. Thankfully, the driver was okay. Everything was, everything did its job, which is exactly what you want. But talk about a crazy way, and I think that's the first race for the NASCAR Tour. Talk about a crazy way to start your season.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, and looking at the video, because of course it started circling around social media, it looked like it wasn't anything more than just a bad hit. You kind of see it with even the Cup cars sometimes. Driver came off the wall, came down, tagged the other guy in the back rear wheel, and he just went around, and again, nothing more than just a racing deal, and nothing where it has to be like reevaluated for safety or anything like that. It was just one of those freak racing accidents, I guess you could say.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
And I do have one thing to add.
mm-hmm.
Since we were on the topic of Monadnock, the NASCAR Wheel Modified Tour was also at Monadnock. They were obviously the headline feature for the Granite State Derby. And it was the first time the Wheel Modified Tour raced on the new pavement.
How'd that go?
At Monadnock. I haven't seen the highlights, but I do know that we talked about the car earlier. Is the old blue, the number 3, of the NASCAR Wheel Modified Tour, probably the most historic modified you can probably have.
Mm-hmm.
Ended up in victory lane, with the driver being Jake Johnson. And it was the first time that car has been in victory lane in 2,582 days.
Wow.
So just a couple of years ago.
Just a couple. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And congrats to Jake Johnson. That is his first career win in the NASCAR Wheel Modified Tour.
I'm just still. It's a lot of races.
Yes. Especially for how historic that car is.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, geez. That's insane.
Yeah, definitely is.
Well, hopefully they had a good race overall, though, over there.
Yeah, they probably did.
I didn't see any highlights on social media of that, but I'm not sure. Are they re-airing that race like on NBC or Peacock coming up?
I'm sure they are at some point. Probably like next Saturday or something. They usually have like a week late.
Mm-hmm. Be interesting to see how that race looks, and if it is on TV we can try and find it, um, but and watch it, of course. But yeah, I mean, it was a good first, I guess you could say, first weekend um, of the racing series up here in New England, um, and they just it was good. It was a good weekend. Glad everything ran
Yeah.
on Saturday because it rained all day Sunday.
Yes, it did.
But all right, any other thoughts on short track Saturday? That segment.
No, I'm good now.
Okay, yeah, so am I. So let's quickly talk about Formula One. So F1 raced in Miami this weekend, and you know this this race had so much. This is the third year they've run there, and when they started racing there was so much. I don't want to say controversy because it wasn't controversy, but there's so much blah around it and in this from the racing world because of the fact that they were running in the parking lot of Hard Rock Stadium, right? And a lot of people were just like, they're racing in a carport. You know, they're doing all this, and sorry about that. And it was just kind of like all these details that people were just like, we don't really like it. You know, we don't really want to do that. And it was you know, again, there were critics going into it, and people were kind of like, the first race put on a good, you know, first year putting on a good race, second year put on a good race. Max Verstappen won both, but then we had, what's it called? This year, what's it called? They raced well. They had a good. Sorry, we're so many things are going on over here, but they raced well, and it was a good race. There was typical Formula One race. Max Verstappen actually hit one of the ballards not ballards, little cones in between one of the corners, and it fell off his car. They put out a safety car to go get the cone. Verstappen was able to pit. The whole field wasn't able to pit because of the way the timing of it worked. So that was something that was interesting, where people were kind of like, huh, what's up with that? And, you know, there's just
I believe Lando Norris pitted under that too.
I was going to say there was just conversation happening that some drivers got in there to pit and some drivers didn't. And people were like, why is that the case? Well, you know, it should be open to everybody. There was an accident between Logan Sargent and I can't remember the other driver, but they were, you know, accident there into the tire packs. But other than that, I mean, it was a very clean race. And not to seem overly excited about this, but Lando Norris won the race, which is awesome, and you know, super excited to have him win his first ever Formula One race. He won in Formula Two, but he hasn't not won in F1 yet, and he beat Max Verstappen.
First Formula One win for Mercedes in 3 years too.
Yep, and Zach Brown was super excited. Was it Mercedes or McLaren's?
McLaren.
McLaren. Okay, I was like, wait a minute. But yeah, no, it was a good race. I mean, I caught the highlights of it, I'll admit. But looking back at the highlights, you know, the place was packed. It was a beautiful day. And I just want to give a quick shout out to everybody down there who puts this racetrack together, because like I said, and I started this segment or this topic about, you know, yeah, it's built in a parking lot of the football stadium, and you know, you could do it one of two ways. You could just kind of clear the way and put down lines and make it look like a street course, or you could do what they do, where if you didn't know that was a parking lot, you would think it's a racetrack, like a permanent racetrack, you know, and they did a great job of like adding all the different things and, you know, different amenities and building it up and making it look like it's a permanent structure. And it's so funny because then us people here, or us in the United States who then watch, football, they do a wide shot of Miami's Hard Rock Stadium, and it's like they put a racetrack there. Like it looks like just a parking lot in the football season, and that's what it is. But they do just a great job of bringing everything in, setting everything up, taking everything out, and just it's impressive to say the least. You know, so super cool to see for sure. Um, I think that's it though. Lando Norris with the win, and that was super exciting for sure. Any thoughts on
Yeah,
Formula One from
definitely.
you?
No,
Uh,
because I didn't watch it.
jeez. All right, no worries. Um, yeah, no, it was a good race for sure, like I said, and I mean, it's super exciting to see that race in Miami after the first year where it was just kind of like people were just about it. The race itself for the first year was great, but just here we are 3 years later, starting to gain steam. I mean, excuse me. The race was promoted on Good Morning America. Like it was not just, oh yeah, Formula One's here. It was this whole thing, and it was just super cool to see. Super cool. Um, let's move on. Truck race in Kansas. It was just the Cup and the Truck Series in Kansas this weekend, correct?
Yes,
So did
Xfinity
you
was on.
did you catch any of the truck race?
I saw highlights of it.
All right, I unfortunately missed it due to some personal stuff going on. So I'm gonna hand it off to you, Jordan. Go ahead and talk about
Oh,
the
oh, oh. I
even if
mean,
it's a quick recap. But go ahead.
um, I mean, I thought the race was pretty good. I think Kansas put on a great weekend overall, which is something especially on a mile and a half, because sometimes mile and a half are like, oh, it could be boring, but like Kansas, I mean, that was like, there's not really much else to say. I mean, obviously Corey Heim ended up winning, but I mean, Kansas had a great race overall. A lot of passing, a lot of battles on track. If I remember from what I saw from I'm going off the highlights, is it seemed like a pretty clean race overall.
Yeah, no, I mean from what I saw too, definitely it seemed like it was a good race, but it was pretty uneventful as well, and that's a good thing, a good issue to have, I guess you could say. Um, but yeah, for sure. I mean, I didn't see much of it, but like I said, from what I saw, it was a good race overall and pretty clean, pretty typical, but also entertaining.
Definitely.
All right, so let's move on to the Cup race. Um, talking about um, NASCAR Cup Series at Kansas, and you kind of hit the nail on the head, in my opinion, where you said, Kansas historically is one of those tracks that's it's hit or miss. Like
Hmm.
you have a couple races there where it's like whoa, and then a couple races where it's like ooh. I mean, and granted, that happens with every track, but to a degree, it seems like the mile and a halfs, not just necessarily Kansas, but the mile and a halfs in general, seem to produce more of those, or those ebbs and flows in excitement than any other track, right? And maybe it's just as simple as we have a lot of mile and a half tracks on the schedule, so we just see it a lot more. But I think that I think that the race itself was great. I mean, the first two stages were pretty standard, uneventful. I watched the first half of the race.
Uneventful.
Hold on. I watched the first half of the race. I'm saying caution wise. I mean, it was
Oh,
like it was
gonna say there's
plenty of action.
Larson and dang, I think it was Bell. I think it
Was
was
it
Bell. Yeah,
was it Reddick
at the
too?
very beginning. That what?
Reddick was involved too, right? At some point.
No, no.
Oh, thought it was.
I,
Oh no, I'm sorry, not Reddick. Chastain.
yeah, okay, thank you. It was
Sorry.
Chastain. It wasn't Bell. It was Chastain and Larson. That seemed like they were gonna break the lap lead, most lap changes by themselves.
Yeah.
It
No.
was.
Yeah.
Whew.
And I meant, yeah. I mean, the first two stages, you're right. That was full of excitement. When it comes to the cautions and accidents, that's what I meant. But it was a pretty clean first half of the race. Hamlin won stage one. Buescher won stage two. Looking pretty good going into the back half of the race, and then still a pretty good race going into it, and it just cautions breed cautions. You brought it up during the short track package, short track talk. Cautions breed cautions, and there were a couple times where drivers would spin out and crash, and there were other times where drivers would spin out and just spin out. And I don't know exactly why, but it makes me wonder if maybe the conditions yesterday were favoring the cars being looser and harder to drive. And if that's the case, then that's exactly what the fans wanted, and I think it lived up to the hype. If, like I said, if that's the case, who knows if that was the intent or if it was just a perfect storm, because obviously they did have a 3-hour rain delay or weather delay, and then we started late. Kansas does have lights though, so we were able to run into the night last night. But yeah, definitely a pretty eventful second half, and then of course here we are coming to one to go, checkered flag, or not coming to the checkered flag, I should say. You got Buescher and you got Larson battling each other, going for it, and Larson doing what Larson does, ripping the top lane, came down off the wall, hit Buescher once, hit Buescher twice, and brings it all the way in and takes the W in the closest finish in NASCAR history, winning the race. Now, no NASCAR race isn't without controversy, so the conversation immediately starts talking about how NASCAR and Fox shows this photo of the finish, and the photo of the finish has Larson beating him to the line by a nose, or not even, more like a splitter, but the line on the racetrack is different than the line on the apron.
Mm-hmm.
So people immediately turn around and say, oh, well, he had a closer line, blah, 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 blah. Now, we do want to make sure that people understand that that NASCAR and Fox is showing you this image to show you it, but the NASCAR themselves are going off of the transponders, which, if I'm not mistaken, and there's a chance I could be wrong here, are mounted on the back part of the race car. So really, what we're looking at is just kind of one of those views of here's what you can show, but NASCAR's looking at it from the transponder point of view, which is the other end of the race car.
Right. I mean, I saw something. I mean, I don't know if you saw it, but everyone was like, "Oh, the line that Larson went to came up first before Buescher's because it was painted differently."
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people had to explain it's not the official. That's not the official line, and then that's what NASCAR usually don't. But obviously, because of all the Buescher won. What the heck is this? They released their speed camera, or I forget exactly what they're called, but they released that camera that they go off of who determines, and you can see what the official line, and you can see that Larson just barely got Buescher.
Right. I mean, exactly. And then I think at the end of the day, Fox is sitting here. So, in my opinion, here's how this probably went. Right. NASCAR comes down and says, hey, it's Larson. They're going off of the numbers,
Hmm.
right? And they say it's Larson, and then Fox is saying, okay, the easiest way to show this without having to over explain it is show them at the nose. Fox could have easily said, well, we're going to watch the cars go by the finish line and show you the rear end because that's really where the transponder is. But then the fans are going to go, why are we looking at the back bumper? It's the one of the first, you know. So at the end of the day, Fox is showing showing evidence to support NASCAR's statement in the simplest way,
Hmm.
you know, and that's really what it comes down to. I can understand where fans are like, but that line is different. Well, paint on the line does not determine what wins. What determines it is the timing and scoring loop in the racetrack, and like that's what the NASCAR fans need to understand. You know, and NASCAR got the call right, and I understand there's always that, well, what if? But at the end of the day, what ifs don't, like, what ifs are usually settled by NASCAR with facts.
Right.
So, um, so yeah, I mean, any other thoughts on that with the finish and all that?
I mean, just how many close finishes have we had this season in NASCAR? We had the 3 wide at Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
We had, I think it was Texas in the Xfinity Series with Sieg and Mayer, and now we have the closest finish in NASCAR history yesterday.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, and I don't. It's so funny because we're sitting here. People are saying, like, let me back up. 2 years ago, when this car came out, they said it was the worst thing ever, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I remember, I think we had a conversation. I've had conversations with other people where it's like, look, you know, oh, the Xfinity series is a lot better. Well, yeah, because the Xfinity car has been run for 6, 7, 8 years, right? Didn't change. Drivers, car owners, crew chiefs, everyone started to learn what this car can and can't do. And it's like race cars are kind of like a fine wine. They get better over time,
Mm-hmm.
right? So here we are now 3 years later. NASCAR's worked out safety kinks. They've worked out this. They've worked out that. And now the race teams are finally starting to understand how these cars operate. So, welcome to year number 3 of having this race car. And now we're starting to see really good quality finishes and quality races and everything. So it's kind of funny how people immediately jumped the gun and were just like, this car's horrible.
Well,
And it's like, hold on a
I
minute,
think a lot
give
of
it some time.
people. I think a lot of people will still say that because I mean, I'm kind of still one of those because short track it's kind of ruined short track racing in NASCAR as in the next gen. Because obviously, I mean, I don't know if it's the car itself or if it's just the package that NASCAR's put on, but NASCAR definitely has to keep looking at that short track package. I'm sure many people have heard it feels like every time there's a short track race other than Bristol, it's like, oh, we have to do something.
I get you. I agree with you on that. And I definitely don't think it's a perfect car by any means. But I do also think that when I mean, I just mentioned it, how the majority of the racetracks on our schedule at one point um, were mile and a halves. And even
Mm-hmm.
to a degree, they're still the same. You know, yeah, they've taken Charlotte's fall race and put it on the road course, and they've taken Atlanta and made it more like a super speedway, and so they've done their part to switch up the mile and a half, so it's not all the same cookie cutter. But like at the end of the day, it's still the same distance, still the same, size track, except for Charlotte, um, with the Roval. But like, point is like you have that's what they worked on with this car to make the mile and a half program better. And I feel like they have. Unfortunately, you're right. The short track side has kind of taken a hit to it. So it's definitely not a perfect race car. But at the end of the day, when you sit here and the fans were like, this car's the worst thing ever, it's like, well, hold on, give it some time. And yeah, I mean, I remember there was a time where the Xfinity cars ran horrible. I don't remember if it was a mile and a half or short tracks, but I remember when they came out, the Xfinity cars ran horrible. So it's kind of like, all right, now we need to work on that, and they did, and now the Xfinity series puts on great racing almost everywhere they go. So it's kind of like, we just gotta, in my opinion, just gotta give it some time. But I do understand where you're coming from, though, with the car not being great everywhere still. And I do agree with you on that, but I think that over time it will get better.
Yeah, I think it will too.
So I mean, you're
I
kind like I
did.
said, you're kind of already starting to see that.
I have breaking news that in the NASCAR world.
Oh
Well, I
boy,
don't want to
here
say breaking news. I don't want to say breaking news actually.
it's news that is new at time of recording, which is Monday, May 6th at 11 a.m. Go ahead.
So according to Adam Stern, he says while NASCAR's been in discussions with Honda about former Toyota exec Ed Lux said that Hyundai is another brand that could see NASCAR as a viable marketing platform.
Okay.
So you could maybe start adding Hyundai to the mix, which I don't know how that would work. I don't think they really make newer cars anymore. I could be wrong. I don't know.
I don't know either. Interesting though. Interesting. I mean, that's another topic for a whole other show. But I think that people are definitely, they're more interested in. Definitely interested in where the series is going to go in that regard as well. Because right now you got Chevy, Ford, Toyota, which is great, but who else can come in? But here's my other question to this, and I think people aren't necessarily thinking about this. You're going to bring in a third manufacturer. Who's going to run there?
Right.
You have all these big name teams, JGR, Hendrick Motorsports, Roush Fenway Keselowski. They all have contracts to these different manufacturers now, and they're not just like one-off contracts. They're like multi-year. So it's like, so let's say Honda or Hyundai or Lexus, or well, Lexus I think is Toyota, but uh, the sporty version of Toyota. Anyways, let's say another manufacturer comes in. That's fantastic, but who's going with them? And I think that's half the battle that fans aren't necessarily thinking about, is the fact that you're going to sit here and say, let's say Honda, just to throw a name out there, Honda comes in to run, or Dodge comes back to run. Okay, so Dodge wants to win. So they're not necessarily going to go with the, Rick Ware Racing, who isn't really tied to anybody, so they are tied to somebody, but they can jump and go. But they're not necessarily going to go with the lower name, not necessarily Rick Ware, but they're not necessarily going to go with a lower name series. There's a race team. They're going to want like a Hendrick Motorsports, but Hendrick Motorsports isn't going anywhere with Chevy. So it's kind of like, it's one of those things where it's like people don't necessarily think about, like, it's not as simple as bring a race car to the track and go. It's from a business standpoint, Honda or Dodge or whoever is coming back and saying, okay, so we're going to invest all this money to manufacture a car, develop a car, build a car, but who's racing it and who's able to win in it? So that, like I said, that's a whole other conversation for another day. Maybe we can talk about that like during one of the off-season shows or something like that. But there's definitely interest in the sport, or outside of the sport and getting into the sport. But at the end of the day, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, so but who is going to do it? Who's gonna jump ship on their current contract and go to a brand new manufacturer and more or less take a jump of faith, and take a chance.
Exactly.
Any other thoughts on the Kansas race?
No, that should be it.
I think overall it was a good race. I mean, your top 10 finishers, Kyle Larson winning, Chris Buescher second, Chase Elliott third, Truex fourth, Hamlin fifth, Bell sixth, Bowman seventh, Kyle Busch eighth, Noah Gragson ninth, and Michael McDowell 10th. McDowell is one to watch, folks. Seriously, I mean, Front Row Motorsports is not just what they used to be.
Noah Gragson.
They're doing good. And yeah, Noah Gragson ninth.
I mean, he's kind of carrying Stewart-Haas. His back has to be hurting. He's kind of carrying Stewart-Haas Racing right now.
They're definitely.
I mean, the only reason why Noah Gregson's not in a playoff spot right now is because he had that 35-point penalty a few weeks ago. So several weeks ago now.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. I think Noah's doing good. Definitely, I agree with you on the sense that he's doing a really good job of being able to, have a good comeback. And out of all the Stewart-Haas Racing teams, he's doing good. But, I mean, so is Josh Berry's had his moments this season, like at Bristol and all that. So I think that at the end of the day, I think Stewart-Haas Racing right now is having that moment where it's kind of like the ebbs and flows of racing, And what I mean by that is like Noah Gragson goes out and has great couple weeks, and then Josh Berry comes out and has a great couple weeks, and then this is so bad I can't even think of the other two drivers off the top of my head, but they like that should say something right there. But like then wow. Ryan Preece runs well a couple weeks. And who's the fourth one, Jordan? Help me out here.
For what?
For Stewart-Haas Racing.
Chase Briscoe.
Thank you. He has his couple weeks. I was totally spacing on that last name. But he has his everybody has their good runs. So I think that Stewart-Haas Racing, I don't think, is a complete lost cause. I think they just need to work on their consistency. And I think they definitely have, like I said, their moments where it's good and they can, they're going to do great things, and I think their consistency is where they're lacking right now. I think that's the deal.
Yeah, definitely.
So, any other thoughts from Kansas or Formula One or short tracks or anything?
I don't have anything though.
Jeez Louise. Strike two here on week number 2. All right. So, looking ahead, where is the NASCAR Storm headed next?
Darlington.
Oh, for throwback weekend, right?
Yes.
That's cool. So this is the final race before the All-Star race.
Yeah.
So final regular season race before our All-Star break, I guess you could say. We got all 3 series there. Trucks, Xfinity, Cup, truck practice and qualifying on Friday, Xfinity practice and qualifying on Friday, then the Buckle Up South Carolina 200 on Friday night at 7:30. And then the Cup Series practice and qualifying on Saturday, and then the Royal Purple Bag Project 200. Just want to make sure I got that right for the Xfinity Series.
Arca's in Charlotte too.
Arca's where?
Charlotte.
Like Motor Speedway?
Yes, Charlotte Motor Speedway.
Arca's running a standalone race at Charlotte Motor Speedway this weekend?
No. Sorry. I just jumped the gun. I was looking at Charlotte Motor Speedway.
I was like, but we're at Dover.
Ignore what I said.
Okay. So Darlington Cup Series practice and qualifying on Saturday morning. Xfinity race is at 1:30, and then of course the Goodyear 400 is at 3 p.m. on Mother's Day, on Sunday, May 12th. So This race historically in the last couple of years has been producing some good stuff, good racing. Like it, I like the fact that we have a night race and a day race there now. Because I remember back when I was in high school, both races were kind of either starting later in the evening or afternoon into the evening or whatever. Whereas now we kind of run at 3 o'clock, and it's you get what you get, and you don't get upset as far as like if we get into the night or not. Whereas in the Memorial Day or sorry Labor Day weekend race, it's kind of like we start purposely at 5 or 6 o'clock and we run late into the night. So I like that because it shows both sides of the racetrack. You could have every racetrack is different. You saw it yesterday in Kansas where they started in the day and they ended at night, and the racetrack completely changed. And I like the fact that we have a day race in the spring, so you see Darlington in that regard, and then a night race in the fall, and you see it in that sense too.
Hmm.
So I'm excited. Any thoughts going into Darlington from you?
I always look forward to a throwback weekend. I mean, I think it'll be a good one.
Yeah, I agree. Should be a good race, and always interested to see how the throwback weekend goes. Let me ask you this real quick: do you feel like the throwback weekend? I don't want to say idea, but like the the concept of it has run its course.
No.
Okay. Let me add a little bit more context to it to further explain where I was coming from because I realized that just was very vague. First year they did it was I don't know probably 4 or 5 years ago, if not longer, longer back in time. And everybody did it. We had all these cool paint schemes. We had all these, paint schemes back to the the 50s and the 60s, and race teams got into it and everything. I think I think that's awesome. You know, um, and I think it was fantastic. And like now, here we are, and unofficially, um, I'm gonna say this because I don't know if it's definite, but like we had a driver last year throwback to himself from like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And it just kind of like, for me, it just kind of like you're looking at it and it's like, okay, hold on. I like the idea of the throwback weekend. I like the idea of doing it, but there's only so many throwbacks you can do when you have 40 cars or 36 cars every year
I
doing it.
mean, have you seen have you seen Alex Bowman's throwback?
I think I
The one that
have.
has
I think I have. What is it? Which one is it again?
Jimmy Johnson's Lowe's 48.
Okay, that's a cool one. And
It's just obviously ally scheme, but it's the same pat color scheme as Johnson's Lowe's in the 48's yellow.
I mean, and that's a cool one. But even then, you're throwing back to 15 years ago, maybe 13 years ago, if you go by the 20s.
See, you're just picky.
No, 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 no. I'm just saying, like, so you
Don't let
threw.
him fool you. Don't let him fool you, folks. Devin is a pretty picky guy when it comes to we're only throwing back to 15 years ago. Oh,
I guess my point
you were just
is,
talking about schemes that some schemes. It's hard to do schemes that haven't been done before, but I just mentioned when he goes, and that was only 15 years ago.
but the Jimmy Johnson scheme has been done before.
That specific one.
It doesn't. Well, I'm just saying in general, throwing back to Jimmy Johnson. I mean, Jimmy Johnson's scheme changed a little bit towards the end, but for the majority of his career, it was the same outline. I guess my point is it makes me wonder. I love the idea. I want to put that out there real quick. I love this idea. I love that they do it. Don't get me wrong, but it just makes me wonder if in the next couple of years is it potentially going to turn stale,
No,
and then it's
no.
just another it's just another weekend, and like that's the thing, like you're The idea of it is great. I love the concept of it.
Ky-
It's great, but at the same time, it was
I
like,
mean,
what are we doing now?
Kyle Larson's scheme is Terry Labonte's old Kellogg scheme.
Like that, I like, but you don't have 40 of
Chase,
those.
Chase Elliott's doing Dale Jr.'s National Guard scheme.
But like that's the thing. Like you don't like so the Terry Labonte scheme.
Not so long ago. I don't like it.
No, like the Terry Labonte scheme is awesome, right? Like that's so cool. That's it's like a fantastic throwback. But at the end of the day, there aren't 40 of those schemes available. Like the first year they did it,
Well,
everybody did it. Whereas now it's kind of
well,
like,
it's gonna be between personal preference of the driver.
I know, but I guess that's what I'm saying is like, it just seems like the first year they did it, we were all in, everybody did it, even the smaller teams were doing it, and now it's kind of like, well, Hendrick Motorsports does it, and JGR is going to throw back, Denny Hamlin's going to throw back to his first ever car he raced, and
Ryan Preece is throwing it back to himself, and in the year he won his first NASCAR Wheel Modified Tour Championship, his scheme for his Cup cars gonna be the same scheme for that.
I mean, and that's cool for him, but I'm just saying, like unless you're gonna be able to do Terry Labonte Kellogg's colors that age for everybody, it just kind of seems like it's like 50-50. It's kind of like some are in and some aren't.
William Byron's doing Jeff Gordon's old DuPont Flame scheme.
I mean, I'm just saying, like you're naming off the big name teams, but like here and there, like I guess my point is that just if it's an all or nothing thing, it should be all or nothing. And I don't know. I just that's how I feel about it. Again, I love the idea. I love seeing the throwback scheme.
You also gotta remember that we only have like half the field is schemes. Like more than half the field hasn't even been announced yet for their schemes.
I know, but I'm just saying when the first year they did it, it was like a huge thing. It was like Formula One releasing their paint scheme for the upcoming season big. Like it was like tune in at 11 a.m. at Facebook Live. Hendrick Motorsports is going to show all their throwback schemes, and it was like whoa. And now it's just like tweet it. Woo! See you in Darlington. Like I don't know. It just seems like the lore and the excitement of it is there, but it's not, and I just don't want it to seem like it's run its course and now we're just trying to beat a dead horse. Speaking of horses, horrible segue here, but speaking of horses, closest Kentucky Derby finish, 3 wide at the line. Pretty insane. Wanted to make sure we threw that in there, although it was like 10 seconds, but still. But I like I said, just to go back to the throwback weekend thing, I think it's great. I love the idea of it, and like I said, it makes me want to go to Darlington Raceway during Mother's Day weekend to see it. Like it makes me want to go to the race, but I just remember when they did it, I mean, it was huge. NBC had it because it was in September, so they had, Ken Squire coming out, with a couple of the Pettys and Jareds, like it was so cool that they went all in. And NBC still kind of does something similar during Labor Day weekend when they have the race there, but it just kind of seems like now it's like a 50-50 game as far as if we're gonna have a whole cast of characters doing throwback, or if it's kind of like the big name guys are, and then other guys are just like, here's my DeWalt paint scheme. And I know that there are different factors involved, like you said, like driver preference, sponsor preference. Like I get it, but it almost makes me wonder if we're gonna have hurdles to clear, then we need to all clear the hurdles, not some clear and some don't.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just my 2 cents on it. Who's your thoughts going into Darlington? Like, who's your picks?
Um, Eric Jones,
Okay.
because Eric Jones is returning this weekend. Let's see. Um, I assume you want three, right?
Yeah, doesn't matter. Go ahead.
So Eric Jones, I'll go with. Who else is usually good at? I'm trying to think of I don't even know who's. Can't remember who's historically good for Darlington. I feel like it's kind of like in anybody race, not in anybody race, but
It is and it isn't.
I'll go with Denny Hamlin.
Okay.
I'm throwing him in there because he's led in 16 consecutive races. So, um, and then the last one I'll go with. Brad Keselowski.
Okay. Not bad. Not bad. Who am I gonna take? I'm gonna say Larson. He's a good one. He's good everywhere. I'm gonna go Elliott as well. And I'm torn between Truex and Busch. Kyle Busch. I want to say Truex because he's just Martin Truex Jr. He's consistent everywhere. But Kyle Busch has had some really good races there that Chase Elliott might have helped finish early. But it just I don't know. So you know what? I'm gonna go Kyle Busch. It's not a long shot, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean,
So that's my thoughts. Yeah. So I guess that's it. I can't think of anything else. Do you have any other things you'd like to talk about?
I can't think of anything else.
Yeah, me neither. I think it's gonna be a good race this weekend. Like I said, I always love Darlington. It always seems to put on a good show, and yeah, should be good. This past week in Kansas also was good. Lived up to the hype. Makes me excited to go back there in the fall for a playoff race. I think they still have their playoff race if I remember correctly. But yeah, should be good for sure. And I think, like I said, I'm excited to see what happens next. Real quick, Jordan, before we forget to, and I will say again next week, but happy congratulations to graduating.
Thank you.
He graduates on Saturday, folks.
Yep. Deb was not going to be there.
I know. I'm sorry.
I was not going to be there.
I'm sorry.
Crazy.
Trust me, I wish I could. Promise. I wish I could. Fortunately, I just got stuff going on that day. I'm coaching a softball team, so there's that. And we have a game. So timing of it did not work. So don't worry. I'll watch the live stream. I know that's the worst thing you can say to your best friend. Don't worry, I'll just catch it online. But I'll do my best. But knowing Jordan, he'll be back in person next week. Want to also give a quick shout out to our friends here at 603 United. Currently, we're recording in their new space located here in the Belknap Mall or Belknap Marketplace in Belmont, New Hampshire. Definitely come check them out.
I was about to ask because we're on FaceTime tonight, so I can see him. Where are you?
Yeah,
I was going to ask that. That just answered my question.
Yeah, so
answer my question before I even asked it.
Yeah, so 603 United helping us out, giving us a space to do our weekly show as well as other podcasts and broadcasts coming up here. So don't go anywhere on that. We got some DPPG has some podcasts in the pipeline that we're working on. So hopefully we'll be doing that more. But I know Jordan's planning to be back in studio next week. And we'll talk Darlington and then look ahead to the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro. And yeah, should be good. But Jordan, I want to say thank you again for jumping on and joining me here this morning. And again, congratulations ahead of time for this week. Super happy and proud of you, bud, and I'm excited to see where you go next as far as life and college, and just always remember us when you make it the big time. Okay, always remember to come home. But and I accept Venmo. I'm just kidding. No, but in all seriousness, excited to see where you go next. Obviously, we have a busy summer plan between the two of us, so it's not like you're just leaving and I'll never see you again.
Right.
But yeah, it'll be fun. But yeah, so folks, I want to say thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget that to follow DPPG, or not DPPG, Racing Hotspot on social media, as well as YouTube and all your favorite podcast platforms. While I'm there, I'll also throw in DPPG. Feel free to go follow us there. We got a lot of stuff going on, as always. But I want to say thank you again to Jordan for tuning in or jumping on with us. And thank you, everyone, for listening to this week's edition of Racing Hotspot. Until we see each other for the next show here, we hope you have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you after Darlington.